This is the Nash Villager Podcast. It's July 15th, 2026. On this day in 1789, about a year after he set up residence in Nashville, Andrew Jackson did something that will probably surprise you. Something that would have very different consequences for anyone who did it now. And something that these days would make it complicated to later become president. On this day, Andrew Jackson signed an oath of allegiance to another country. I'm Nina Cardona, and this is your daily digest of what's happening around Middle Tennessee with context and backstory from Nashville Public Radio, WPLN News. The oath became public knowledge in 1995 when a historian named Robert Remini came across the paperwork documenting it. The Tennessee Historical Quarterly broke the news. Jackson took an oath of allegiance to Spain at a time when Spain controlled the Louisiana Territory, which included New Orleans and Natchez, Mississippi. You see, he was down in Natchez trying to do some business there, as many Nashvillians at the time did. But when the Spanish were in control of that territory, they had tight laws governing who was allowed to do business there. Americans and British people were particularly blocked from doing much of anything. As a result, it wasn't uncommon for Tennesseans to sign an oath making them legally Spanish, or at least Spanish enough to trade goods there. Meanwhile, here on the Nashville end of the Natchez Trace, it was treated as what happens in Spanish territory stays in Spanish territory. In other words, they didn't consider themselves anything but Americans doing whatever they had to do to make a buck. And they certainly would never have expected anyone here to question their citizenship. Not that it was always that simple. There was at least one case of a guy from Kentucky, a Revolutionary War officer named James Wilkinson, who bought the right to trade in Natchez by not just going through the legal motions, but by agreeing to encourage other people in Kentucky to push for their area to align with Spain instead of the new United States. He was pressured to make that agreement just a couple of years before Jackson signed his oath. But Jackson was just a 22-year-old guy getting started in his career. He wasn't the kind of influential mover and shaker who the Spanish officials would bother trying to influence. From all indications, his oath was just a formality that he considered meaningless. And he could do something like that because it was just 1789. The United States was still very much in formation phase. The Bill of Rights wasn't introduced until later that year. The finer points of citizenship wouldn't be ironed out for a long time yet. But now, 250 years into this democratic experiment, we do have quite precise laws governing this kind of stuff. And what Jackson did back then would not fly the same way today. According to United States Code, Title 8, Section 1481, when you voluntarily make an oath or other formal declaration of allegiance to another nation, that's the same as renouncing your own citizenship. Now, that is somewhat softened by court decisions and State Department policies. Because of those things, if you, say, get married to a British person and decide to get your British citizenship, you can do so, oaths and all, without officially renouncing your U.S. citizenship. And in practice, the way to actually have your U.S. citizenship go away is to fill out a form with the State Department or be convicted of treason, in which case I assume the paperwork is filed on your behalf. But either way, it takes paperwork filed in the United States. And by that standard, Andrew Jackson's forms were only ever submitted to Spanish authorities, so... But these days, if you got that citizenship just to do business in another country and then you ran for president, I think it's pretty safe to say people from the other party would be asking some very big questions. And there might very well be a push to adjust the interpretation of the law. And in fact, after the news came out in 1995 that Andrew Jackson had been, as far as anyone could tell, the only U.S. president to have signed allegiance to another nation, there certainly were people who felt it put some of his presidential actions in a deeper shadow. The descendants of the people he forced out of their native lands without an option to be American citizens or to be treated with the rights afforded by citizenship. The website First Tribe Nation, devoted to Native American issues, worded a headline this way: Andrew Jackson, sworn citizen of Spain, voids Indian Removal Act. And of course, seeing how things worked for Jackson back in his day does hit a certain way if you are, say, a person with birthright citizenship who breathed a sigh of relief at the recent Supreme Court ruling, but are still quite worried about family members whose legal status is more complicated or more tenuous. In just a few minutes, this week's edition of What Wear Wednesday. That's coming up after the newscast.
You know that on the Nash Villager, what happened on this day in history matters. And on this day, well, it's an important one in the history of Nashville Public Radio. It's been 1 year since we became completely community funded. I'm Tony Gonzalez, our local news director. I'd like you to take a moment to think about what this community funding means. For one, it's amazing that this is how public media works. No paywall, no mandatory subscription, but people like you and your neighbors deciding the service is so valuable that it is worth a contribution. This podcast alone, it's here for you something like 250 mornings per year. Every weekday, you get that essay from Nina and the newscast and a local feature. Maybe that's worth $1 a day? You can decide, but it is true that we rely on you more than ever. Contribute at WPLN.org/give.
Here's the latest from WPLN News. There's an adage that you should never turn down a chance to be on TV, but U.S. Senator Marsha Blackburn has done just that. Blackburn is the frontrunner in the Republican primary to become Tennessee's next governor. The current governor, Bill Lee, is term limited. Blackburn turned down an invitation from News Channel 5 to debate her two GOP rivals, Congressman John Rose and State Representative Monty Fritz. After Blackburn declined to take part, Rose pulled out as well, prompting the station to cancel the event altogether. Experts say Blackburn's strategy suggests she wants to hold on to her lead and thinks debating would be high risk, low reward. Meanwhile, the most recent numbers show Blackburn has raised 10 times the amount as John Rose. But WPLN's Mariana Bacallao reports those dollars are coming from outside of Tennessee.
Blackburn raised nearly $2.8 million in the second quarter of the year compared to Rose's roughly $250,000. State Representative Monty Fritz raised $80,000. For Rose and Fritz, the majority of their contributions come from the state of Tennessee, while the majority of Blackburn's come from out-of-state donors in places like California, Florida, and Washington, D.C. Rose outspent other candidates last quarter on mailer and TV ads, while Blackburn's were mostly financed by PACs, freeing up her funds for the last few weeks of the campaign before the August 6th primary. Mariana Bacallao, WPLN News.
Nashville Mayor Freddie O'Connell has officially kicked off his re-election campaign. O'Connell had already confirmed his intention to pursue a second term to the media, but the mayor publicly launched his campaign this week with an event at Slim & Husky's. The Nashville Banner reports he cited 3 projects as central to his first term: the Choose How You Move transit referendum, affordable housing and the unified housing strategy, and the East Bank project. O'Connell says renewed emphasis on city parks would be part of his second term if elected. Over his tenure, O'Connell has filed lawsuits with the state and the Trump administration over legislation targeting Nashville and federal funding cuts. He's also faced off with the federal government over immigration enforcement and faced criticism at times from progressive activists and council members over police surveillance and homeless encampments. Metro Council member Joy Stiles and neighborhood activist Lou Wilbanks have also started their own mayoral campaigns, though neither have reported how much they've raised. Well, it's like the summer of 2023 all over again, at least where Nashville's Airport Authority is concerned, or rather, airport authorities, plural, because once again, 2 different boards, one appointed by state leaders, the other by Metro officials, are preparing to hold dueling meetings today. The state board, formed under a new state law that applies to all of the major airport authorities in Tennessee, will meet at the airport at 1 p.m. The Metro board is meeting downtown at 11 a.m. Metro has filed a lawsuit against the Federal Aviation Administration in hopes of barring the state's changes and reinstating the locally appointed board as the airport's legally recognized governing body. Elon Musk's XAI facility in Memphis is causing one type of air pollution at a level higher than the largest coal plant in Tennessee. WPLN's Caroline Eggers reports that's because of how the facility is being powered.
XAI has about 60 mini gas turbines powering its Memphis facility just across the state line in Mississippi. That's estimated to cause more nitrogen oxide pollution than TVA's largest coal plant. The NAACP and the Southern Environmental Law Center sued the company for running turbines without permits or pollution controls. The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency is intervening in the case. EPA's top official Lee Zeldin told WPLN Tuesday that Mississippi handles pollution permits in the state and
EPA isn't the permitting authority for these projects in Tennessee.
But this case is only in Mississippi, so that's not relevant and that's not right according to an EPA rule. The agency says even mobile gas turbines still need permits. Caroline Eggers, WPLN News.
Lebanon officials are at odds with the Wilson County Commission over where a new wastewater treatment facility should be located, and that disagreement is now spreading to other ways that the city and county interact. Or is it? The Wilson Post reports the Lebanon City Council wants to withhold the city's usual contribution towards the county's Farm Bureau Expo Center. Based on a 10-year-old agreement, the city is supposed to pay $100,000 a year towards the facility. The move to stop paying that money comes amid the ongoing wastewater dispute. The city wants to move the facility out of the city limits. The county says it should stay in Lebanon. But the council member sponsoring the resolution to stop paying towards the Expo Center says the two issues are not related. Tick Bryan acknowledges that it looks like tit for tat. He insists that's just unfortunate timing. He says the Expo Center is doing well enough that it no longer needs the city's contributions, and it's time to just end the subsidy. Well, there's not much individuals can do about microplastics in our water, except finding a way to use less plastic and dispose of it properly. In an episode of This is Nashville about the presence of microplastics in Middle Tennessee, Anthony in Antioch called in to say there's only so much plastic we can safely do without. He sells plastic film for a large regional manufacturer.
Modern society, urban living, requires plastic film. We can't move food from where it's grown in a timely enough manner and protect it without that usage.
Other callers talked about moving to shampoo in bars and making coffee in a metal French press. In the Cumberland River, the presence of microplastic particles is on the high end of average levels for American rivers. The Tennessee River has double the rate of the Cumberland. However, tap water in Nashville is thought to be free of microplastics, with no trace found in the most recent Consumer Confidence Report. In Centennial Park, you will soon be able to cool off with a soft serve ice cream, eat a pimento cheese sandwich, or sip a coffee as you gaze upon the Parthenon. Croquet Cafe is opening this summer, becoming the park's first permanent on-site restaurant. The cafe's menu will be inspired by Southern picnic traditions and is developed by the restaurateurs of Nashville's Grilled Cheesery. The cafe will be housed in the historic 1963 Croquet Clubhouse on the northwestern side of the park. It's all part of an ongoing effort to upgrade Centennial Park that started over a decade ago. And proceeds from the cafe will go towards Centennial Park's revitalization efforts. The restaurant's scheduled to open in late August.
You'll find more news anytime at WPLN.org.
I'm Marquise Munson here with another edition of Nashville Public Radio's What Were Wednesday, keeping you up to date with the happenings in Nashville this week. Starting tonight, Paul Simon performs at First Bank Amphitheater, and on Thursday, Hamilton Lighthouser and Nashville artist Josh Gilligan is at the Basement East. Also on Thursday night, WNXP Trivia is happening at the Blue Room. Friday night, Tori Amos with Barty Strange is at the Ryman, and at the same venue on Saturday, Kurt Vile and the Violators take the stage. Also on Saturday, Be Your Own Pet is at the Blue Room, Girl Tones performs at the OG Basement, and Feeble Little Horse is at the Basement East. Wrap up this week's listings Tuesday with WNXP Presents of Montreal at Cannery Hall's The Mill, and for more events, head over to WNXP.org/events.
We don't exist. Let's pretend we're in Antarctica. Let's have bizarre celebrations.
This week for What Were Wednesday, we feature the 6th annual Radnor Lake Art Show taking place this Friday through Sunday at the Walter Criley Visitor Center. The free community event will include works from 60 artists with a range of scenes from Radnor Lake and offers an opportunity for the community to directly support conservation efforts through art.
Hi, I'm Connie Cathcart Richardson. I'm a board member for Friends of Radnor Lake. Friends of Radnor Lake is a nonprofit that I'm so passionate about that supports Radnor Lake State Park. We are there to protect, promote, and preserve the land that surrounds Radnor Lake. Radnor Lake was formed hundreds of years ago and was taken over as a state park 53 years ago next month. And we have continued to add land to protect that area from the growth of Nashville, really. So it's a really special place where we've got bald eagles and we've got monarch butterflies and deers roaming, and it's just so beautiful, and it's just a gift to the city, really. And I'm very proud to have the opportunity to be part of that.
But in a lake you can backstroke forever.
My name is Ellen Parker Bibb, and I am co-president this year of the Chestnut Group. This is also our 25th anniversary. We are a group of painters that gives back to support historic preservation and natural habitats and landscapes in Middle Tennessee. There's about 150 of us. It varies from year to year. Anybody can be a member. There's no level of competence you need to have at painting. You can just be interested, or even interested in the environmental aspect of it. And Radnor is one of our favorite partners. So we are super excited about the upcoming show. And you'll walk in the doors and you will see almost 200 paintings of the areas that are surrounding the Nature Center. You'll see animals, you'll see the landscapes, you'll see the lake, paintings of duckweed and turtles and birds and paths, people, and there's paintings of all sizes. There's up-and-coming artists. There's new artists that this might be their first art show. All the paintings will be for sale, but there'll be a variety of prices. We'll just fill up the space with beautiful landscapes and scenes from the beloved Radnor.
This is our 7th year to work together on this show. We've been doing it like every couple of years, but the thing that is so unique about the Chestnut Group is they are all about conservation. The organizations they choose to work with are preserving buildings or land or different things throughout the community. And so the fact that they would choose to work with us, we think is very, very special. And the fact that they paint on site, we laugh and say you can't take anything home from Radnor other than your memories, but this is the only way you get to truly take a piece of Radnor home with you and enjoy what we love about Radnor every day in your own home. So it's a partnership that we cherish and we look forward to, and it's a win-win for both of us because the artists love being there and we love having them, and it's a gift to the community.
Every corner you turn, there's something beautiful and fascinating and serene. And when I was painting a couple of months ago, there was a turtle covered in duckweed, and I was fascinated with the colors of the wood duck. I don't see those other places, and they just look like they are almost too pretty to paint. It's just been a special place. I think we're both native Nashvillians, and so I grew up going there. I think when you were able to actually drive through the streets. So, yeah, it's a really special place to a lot of people.
For more information on Radnor Lake Art Show and other events happening this week, visit WNXP.org. My name is Marquise Munson, and thank you for listening to another edition of What Where Wednesday.
When everyone else is having a good time. How to get all these responsibilities. So many people and they all depend on me.
Thanks for listening to the Nash Villager podcast. We take this look at Nashville news every weekday. If you like it, go ahead and subscribe on your favorite podcasting app. And tell a friend or give us a mention on your socials. It really helps get the word out. And of course, everything at WPLN News is listener supported. You can become a member at WPLN.org. And that's it for today. Thanks so much for listening. Let's make this day a good one, and we'll catch back up tomorrow.